from lunch, or at least lunch for me. I guess for some of you that might have been brunch, breakfast, just a welcome relief of not hearing from me for a little while. But we are back, and we are back with Katrina. Thank you so much for coming to speak with us today. And we're talking about distractions, which is really a bit of a different topic. We very rarely speak about distractions, so I'm really excited about this session. Just a note, if you are here and want to attend the Photoshop session and are kind of struggling between the two, remember, all sessions are being recorded. They're being uploaded today. So no matter where you go or which session you watch live right now and over the next hour, you can still watch absolutely every session in your own time. But without further ado, I shall get off the stage and hand over the reins to you, Trina.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. So glad to be here. And welcome, everybody. Um, so I'm glad you're here because there are a multitude of other things you could be doing. It's 5:30 in the morning where I am, so you can imagine some of the other things that might be distracting me right now. And I want you to think about that for a moment. What is distracting you? Look around, think about it. All of those things that could be distracting you, you have avoided them to be here. Now, the interesting thing is, as we think about those distractions, there is a good chance that at any particular moment, you're really not here. 50% chance that you're not here. So, when we think about that with the classes that we design, we have to take that into account because there's a 50% chance your learners are checking out. And there are some things that we might be doing as instructional designers that add to that checking out. So let's just pause for a moment. And I'd like you to put your 2 feet flat on the floor. And when you do that, you might notice that you sit up straighter. And when you sit up straighter, you will probably get a deeper breath. And when you get a deeper breath, you're going to get more oxygen to your brain. And when you get more oxygen to your brain, you can pay better attention. So let's add to that one extra step. I'd like you to close your eyes and take a deep breath. And imagine that, if you're comfortable, and imagine that breath going all the way to your toes. And hold it for a moment and then let it go. And then do it one more time. Deep breath. And let it go. Now, I'm curious what changed for you. You can share it in the comments if you'd like. How do you feel compared to when we started? So, what many people say is in that moment, things go away. You become more focused. You become calmer by taking that moment to pause, take that breath and be here. Dominica says the focus is on me. More focused from Connie. Checked in from Hara. Clear mind. Engaged from Luis. Yes, exactly. And that's what learners will say in your class too. When you create that moment to pause, that moment that allows them to focus. We kind of need it as a buffer between everything out in the world and right now. And that's what we're going to talk about in our time together this morning. We're going to identify what distracts learners, and then we're going to discuss methods to both minimize, manage, and eliminate those distractions. I love that Monica feels more present. And that's what we're going for. If we have people present in whatever modality we might be delivering the training, if they're more present, they're going to be more able to learn what we are trying to convey. So let's get started with a quiz to see what you already know about distractions. So, first question I have for you is how long does it typically take for someone to regain their focus after being distracted? And you can put the answer into the comments if you'd like. A, 2 to 3 minutes, B, 5 to 6, C, 10 to 15, or D, 20 to 25. How long does it take? Haley and Jose both say 5 to 6. Oh, I see some C's, some more B's coming in. Well, Elizabeth, you are the first person to win 1 million points today because you said the correct answer. You ready for it? 20 to 25. On average, it takes us 20 to 25 minutes to get back to the task we were doing after we've had a distraction. That's a huge amount of time if you think about it. This is based on research out of the University of California, Irvine, by Gloria Mark, who has spent her career looking at attention and focus. Yeah, Haley, you win. Absolutely. So if you said D, if you said 20 to 25 minutes, you win 1 million points. Elizabeth, and that's a good point. If you have any type of neurodiversity, this number may not be accurate for you at all. So 20 to 25 minutes. So we want to do as much as we can to minimize those distractions, right? All right, second question. Let's see how you do on this one. Second question, how many times does the average American, that's where I hang out most of the time, how many times does the average American check their phone in a day? Let's see. Give you a moment. Give me that answer. Let's see. Now, this may be skewed if you think about young people. And in fact, my son last night, when I showed him this, he was like, that number's too low. Excellent. I'm seeing some D's come in, some C's. The answer actually is C, 96 times. 96 times. So if you do the math on that for the average person's waking time, it's a lot. Yeah, Monica, 1,000. Yeah, people so often are checking their phones that they don't even realize they're checking them. I've started the practice of announcing what I'm doing on my phone if I'm around people. And I've noticed that like I do it less. So if you have your phone around you, slide it away so you can be here. All right. So a lot. So sorry, Elle, it is D. Um, so with this, yeah, oh, Jose has a good point. Some people look at it all day. Like it's just once. It's just once. And it's a long look. Um, and Nikita, you're right. It is why turning off your notifications is so important because the internet and social media and all of the technology that you're holding in your hand is designed to want you to hold it in your hand. So 96. So we're up against a lot as instructional designers when we try to create programs that people will be engaged with. So, next question. Are you ready? What effect does multitasking have on task performance? What effect does multitasking have on task performance? So, you know the procedure now. Put that letter into the chat. This one, this one's probably a little easier. Not so surprising. That's my guess anyway. Yeah, all of those of you who said B, absolutely, it decreases. Multitasking is a myth. You probably knew that. So we can do things like inviting our learners to be present, creating those moments where we ask them to pause so that they are engaged. And no matter what type of delivery we're using, that's going to be beneficial for our learners. So well done on that one. Yeah, Monica said it. We cannot multitask. You might be able to listen to a podcast while you're washing the dishes, but you can't do anything that requires much attention and expect to do something else. Now remember that 25 minutes? So now you're switching back and forth between tasks if you're multitasking and you're not doing either of them very well. Yeah, Olga, absolutely. People who multitask and are switching back and forth feel like they're good at it. And that that feeling actually is false, because the depth that they're engaging with, the learning they have out of that through that multitasking, and that the productivity through the switching can be really detrimental. So you're actually losing productivity as it's measured over time. And Kim said it, cognitive load. Yep. And Elle, you got it. There are many people dying on that mythical hill. I love that term. I'm going to borrow it from you if you don't mind. All right, so I'm not going to put the slide up for this one because it's, well, okay, let me just show you. It didn't come across, it didn't load well, so it's really ugly. So we'll not have that distraction. All right, next one. Only two options for this. Which distraction is more detrimental to learning and cognitive performance? Auditory or visual? I'll give you a moment. Now, I was curious with this one if there would be any difference. Thank you. Thank you, Elle. It can depend, absolutely. But most of the time, it's the auditory that's going to really distract us. It's the audit. Both will, absolutely, Olga. Both will distract us. But the auditory is the one that is more detrimental to our cognitive performance. So if you have a random image that doesn't fit with your point, you're going to be less bothered by that, depending on the image, of course, than a sound that's annoying. That sometimes it's the person next to you breathing, or that continual tick of something, or my favorite, I'm old enough that I remember when PowerPoint started to get used by a lot of people, and they would use whooshing sounds and alarms, and because it was available, not because it was a good design. Yeah, and Monica has an important point, that it depends if you need to read. And if you're reading, the visual can be like distracting, but that audio sound can also take us away. And music can help people focus depending on what that music is, as Nikita has pointed out. And it really depends on the person whether you can have music or not. So, um, oh, I love it. I know how bad I am at work when my dog is barking. Yeah, there you go. Sometimes my dog's barking and I don't even hear it because I'm like in it. All right, last question. That was the last question. You got it. Well done. So it's time now for what I like to call instructional origami. Uh, we have some visual distractors today. Did you notice them? There will probably be more. So I'd like you to grab a piece of paper. I'm just using a standard 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. It can be recycled. We're just going to use one side of it. So if you can grab that piece of paper, I'll give you a moment in case you don't have something around me. Laura, I'm with you. Laura said that when they're reading, any music with voices will distract. Classical or movie scores help me focus. Yeah, I like meditation music where it's just very even and not a lot happening. But it depends. It depends person to person. All right, so with this piece of paper, I'm going to ask you to fold it like you were going to mail it in an envelope. I know we don't do that much anymore. So it's really two folds. I'll show you here in a moment. And when we open that up, you should have 3 columns. And we're going to do a little drawing and a little writing in each of these columns. So in the first column, in that first column, I would like you to, my transitions didn't work. Okay, that's okay. In the first column, I'm just gonna talk you through this. In the first column, I'd like you to draw a window, please. So there's just at the top of the column, just a window. You leave yourself plenty of space to write. And next to that window, I'd like you to write the words external distractions. And these are the distractions for our learners that are outside of their bodies. They are the distractions that surround any of us at any given day or any given moment. And I'd like you to take the next minute, I'm going to time it, and in the next minute, I would like you to write as many external distractions as you possibly can. So you've got 1 minute. I'm going to time it because my 1 minute is going to feel longer than yours. So go ahead and start. As many external distractions as you can. Thirty seconds remaining, no pressure. All right, go ahead and wrap up the one you're writing right now. And let's talk about those external distractions. So, like I said, external distractions are anything outside of the learner. And so they might be things like people talking, traffic, notifications, family, pets. If you if you have my 5, you get 1,000,000 points for each of those. I hope you're keeping track of your points. And in the comments, I'd love to hear what are the distractions that I didn't mention? What are some of the distractions I didn't mention? Share those in the chat. I keep calling it the chat. In the comments, you can tell I spend my life on Zoom. What are some of those distractions you listed? For an extra 1,000,000 today. Light, sound, temperature. Temperature is a big one, Haley. Glad you mentioned that. Noisy birds, temperature, smells. Yes. To-do lists, chores, work, deliveries at the door, construction work. Yeah, landscaping is always high on my list. Stress. So stress and our to-do list. Well, your to-do list may be physical. That actually moves us into our next category. And it's important to have these categorized because they tell us a little bit about how we, as instructional designers, can address them. So, Olga said sound of rain, thunder, heavy clouds, changes in the light, all the devices from Monica, the laundry from Elle. No kidding. Landscapers and neighbors, messy workstation, the time, delivery man. And Nikita, even the time, I think that's going to go in our next column. It can work in the external too because we've got a clock, right, that you might be looking at. All right, so lots of distractions in this column. The weather, yeah, that's been a big one lately. Email subscriptions, those notifications, right? Okay, so let's go to the second column now. And in the second column, I would like you to draw a thought bubble. And next to that thought bubble, I would like you to write the word internal distractions. Now, remember, if you were here at the beginning, 50% of the time we are distracted, potentially, right? 50% of the time. And most of those distractions actually come from this column, the internal distraction column. Um, so, the sound of the fan on the laptop. Oh, Elizabeth, I hear ya. Okay, so in this middle column, you've drawn a thought bubble and you've written the words internal distraction. I'd like you to take 1 minute again and list as many internal distractions as you can come up with. These are the things that I can't see if I'm looking at you, but if you are the learner, you're feeling them. So 1 minute. 9 seconds left, no pressure. Rhonda's got us started already. I love it. I love it. Okay, so go ahead and stop with the one you're writing right now, and let's hear. Oh, wait, let me show you first. Right. So we've got those internal distractions. Those include things like daydreaming, anxiety, hunger, being unmotivated, pain, emotions, boredom, being tired. So a lot of internal distractions. Rhonda added what's for lunch, what's for dinner, your to-do list. What else would you add to this internal distraction list? Those things we carry inside. Add them to the comments. Gain your 1 million points. Some of you have to be like in the hundreds now, right? Comfort in your seat. Absolutely, Haley. Thinking, overthinking. I love that came, Morgan. I love that came right after Sarah's. Hunger, yeah. Tiredness, OCD, too many other tasks on your mind. Pete, man, I really need to exercise, but these slides aren't done. Let me ponder this for 10 minutes. Yeah, let me decide where this one element on the slide's going to go, and let me put it in 20 different places, right? And none of them are right. Random thoughts, heavy workload, analyzing what someone said, did, and why, your health, fear and stress. Sudden great idea for the project I'm not working on right now. That's when I get my best ideas, is when I'm working on something else. Restlessness. Isn't it break time now? Random curiosity. Yes. Now, I mean, you already knew what we were up against with distractions, right? But look at all of these. Over caffeination, interest level. That interest level is going to be an important one we're going to talk about in just a moment. And that safety is going to be important as well. If we don't feel safe in an environment, we can't pay attention. That lack of safety will be a distraction. And those squirrels. Can we have class outside? Absolutely. Absolutely. I love all of these because this is why 50% of the time we may not be here. So it's hard to make those things go away. But put your feet flat on the floor, take a breath. That can help. Now, Last column. The first two columns, you'll notice as an instructional designer, we can do some things about, but we can't eliminate all of these. Let's go to the column where we have a little bit more impact and we can eliminate more. So in the third column, I'd like you to draw a self-portrait. Just go ahead and draw you any way that you see yourself. Nobody has to see this. We're not going to judge it. So if you're not artistic, it's okay. And then I'd like you to write the words. What words am I having you write? I got distracted. Imagine that. Instructional design distractions. That one shouldn't have been hard. Instructional design distractions. I'm a little distracted today because I had to use my slides in a way I didn't anticipate. So things aren't they're not animated in the way that I had planned. So, they're real, right? We all have them. So, in the instructional design distraction column, I'd like you to do what we've done before. Take 1 minute. And I'd like you to think about in what we design, what can potentially be a distraction? To get you started, they might be things like distracting visuals that take your attention away, or auditory noises and transitions that don't fit or distract me. So give you 1 minute. All right, go ahead and wrap up the thought you're on. And let's go to that third column. And with instructional design, you got it, Jacqueline. Too much content. Exactly. So it might be things like distracting visuals, lengthy text, inappropriate humor, too much lecture, no interaction, irrelevant content. And so you're adding them in already. I love it. Elizabeth, too much text, too little text. There's a balance there, right? Jacqueline's, when there's too much content, other things. Let's hear what you wrote on your list. Too many things on one slide or visual, color, shapes, photos. Too much animation or interaction. Yeah, like just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Lack of symmetry, cohesion. Excellent. Not accessible for learners' needs. That one's really important, Melanie. And the interesting thing is when we think about distractions and we design our trainings for with distraction in mind, we actually often address accessibility as well. The two almost all very often go hand in hand. Jose, typos. I almost put a typo on this slide. I may have, I don't know. But I had an intentional one and I couldn't do it. It was too uncomfortable. Voiceover is different from the text on the screen from Monica. Absolutely. The wrong information, too much clicking, typos, poor choice of background color, boring format from L, boring, inconsistency, colors that don't match, redundant, difficult to read, irrelevant, lack of color contrast for readability issues, difficult to understand the person doing the voiceover, too much interaction. Yeah, too much versus not enough, right? Formatting, confusing UI and UX, and cat memes. Yeah, the random cat meme. Now, cat memes sometimes can be good, and I'll tell you why in a moment. So, when we think about these distractions, I want you to take a look at your list now And I want you to circle those things that in any of the columns that as an instructional designer, you can eliminate. So take a look at your list. What can you eliminate? Give you about 30 seconds. I know that's a rush. As you look at your list, you'll probably notice that there are some things that you can only minimize. There's some things that you can eliminate, and some things that just have to be managed, that we know they're present and we just need to take it into account as we design. So let's talk for a moment about. Absolutely, Sarah. Absolutely depends if it's virtual or in person, if it, what is the modality. But if, as we are thinking about our learners, we're thinking about our distractions, it will be different what we can eliminate or manage or minimize. When we look in the instructional design column, that's really where we have the most control, obviously. That's really where we can help support our learner and minimize their distractions. Now, some of what we do in that column will impact the internal column as well. So when we think about this, we have to think about what drives attention as well, because that's really what we have some control over, more or less. Yeah, exactly, Monica. You can only eliminate that last column. Absolutely. So when we think about what drives in attention, you've said some of these already, that we have to have interest in the topic. And that can happen sometimes by giving that opening appeal, like, why does this matter to you? And finding that. A rested alert brain. You can't always control, you can't control that as the instructional designer, but that is one of the things that's important for attention. Absence of imminent stressors. So we can ask people to take that pause, set things aside, give them support that they need, hopefully, or just give them the reminders. Sometimes just letting people know how often we are distracted, how much our phone pulls us when it's in the same space as we are, can help people to be more aware of those imminent stressors. And then a connection. If it is a situation where you might be in person or there is some social element, then connection to your trainer and peers can help create attention as well. Um, Nicholas has a great point. I'm usually able to minimize background noises by playing music during independent work time or explore time. Yeah, just be very careful with that, your music choice, and you absolutely have a great way to minimize. And then finally, leadership support. It will help drive attention as well. If I know that my leader is helping to manage some of my distractions or keep them away from me for a moment, that's going to be more helpful as well. And just knowing that they support and see a purpose for the learning that I'm doing. All right, so let's get to two questions I'd like you to remember after today. And those two questions, anytime we're designing whatever it is, these two questions will help to minimize and eliminate distractions. And the first question is, what is the purpose? Everything that we do needs to have a purpose. And you need to ask yourself that, like, why am I putting this white puzzle piece with a red link between it? What's the purpose of that? And if you don't have a good answer, if it doesn't lead us to learning, if it doesn't lead us to performance, if it doesn't lead us to engagement, there's really no reason to have it. So ask yourself that question. What's the purpose? And then tie everything to your objectives. If you're tying everything to your objectives, I'm assuming you have objectives that you've thought about and have come to through an analytical process. You tie that, now you're going to have a greater opportunity to grab attention because your learner is going to see the purpose as well. Now, let's talk about some things that need purpose that you've brought up, but we've got to be really careful with, and that's pictures and text. So, pictures need to support your point. If the picture doesn't support your point, it actually adds extra cognitive load and can take your learner away from the objective that you are trying to achieve. So, you want to be careful that there are no random flamingos. If you're going to put a flamingo in your slide deck, there's got to be a purpose. I have a purpose for my flamingo. All right. So, pictures have a point. Thanks, Tom. So pictures are pretty obvious, right? Like we need to have that connection. And then when it comes to text, text can be a huge detractor. So I want you to just tell me what your reaction is when you see this. Oh, we're going to get to those cat memes. We're going to get to those cat memes. All right. You see all this text. What do you think? How many of you are reading it or trying to read it right now? Yeah, Sarah says, I love this. I'm not going to read it. Nope, not doing it. From the moment you see it, it's just overwhelming, boring. You look at it and you're like, too much text, too much text. My son, my 17-year-old son, has dyslexia. And so we've spent much of his life researching, advocating, overcoming, learning everything that we can about it. And he would look at this and just be like, that's just not doing it. And Amanda, and Amanda said, I would be reading that and not listening to the person talking personally. Yeah, exactly. I would have to read it too because I can't see words and not read them. Kim says, overload, danger, Will Robinson, yawn. Exactly. This is boring. No. If you bolded some of it, you might read those words, Sarah says. Elizabeth wants a nap. Like you're all out of here, right? But I know sometimes this shows up. Maybe not on a PowerPoint, but maybe in other places. Blurred edges of the paragraph for Kim. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like this is bad news. So this information, we can fairly easily deal with this. Someone said bolding some things or just getting to the point, using fewer words. I'm reading a fabulous book called Smart Brevity, and it is all about just getting rid of the distractions, getting down to like the most important. Now, we could make this even more impactful by bringing in lines one at a time so that you're reading them as I talk about them, or you're just reading them one at a time. Uh, you're not distracted by the extra text. And then we can use bold, we can use italics, we can use underlining, but we want to be careful that we don't overuse it because even overused, it can be distracting. Now, when you look at this particular slide and you look at this text, one of the things you'll probably notice, one of the things that probably makes it more comfortable for you to see is that it is surrounded by white space or negative space. It doesn't have to be white. It's just there's nothing there. That actually is calming, less distracting. It's easier for us not just to read, but it's easier for us to look at. Yeah, absolutely, Elizabeth. I always say slides are free. Add more. It's okay. It's okay. So, with text, be very mindful, be very purposeful so that your learner actually can engage with it. Now, next question. I said there were two, right? What is the purpose? The next question is, what is the learner doing? What is the learner doing? So I want to think about that with everything I design. What is the learner doing? Because if the learner is just listening or the learner is just reading, it's really not enough. We want to move beyond that. Let's go back. I'll go back there to 6. Okay. So color to convey meaning means that I don't want to have a color. Like, I wouldn't want to put the answer, like, if you go back to the quiz, I wouldn't want the answer to just be green and be a different color than the other responses to have that meaning. Because if you don't see colors in the same way that I do, you're not going to see it. You're not going to know that that's the answer. It's kind of like when you play games that have different colored tokens. If I have any color blindness, I am not going to be able to see what color my token is. So that's that meaning. One of my favorite games is Ticket to Ride, and they use little trains, and you create a path across Europe or across the United States, and on the side of each of the trains there is a symbol that you can feel. So if you don't see color, you have the feeling as well. So that's number 6. And Elizabeth, absolutely. When we underline, underlining is an accessibility issue. It is meant to now, today, convey that it's a clickable link. So something to keep in mind. Use underlining only as it's intended. Be careful with that one. All right, so let's go back to this question. What is the learner doing? And we want to make sure that the learner is doing something more than reading and writing. And writing's okay. Reading and listening for long periods of time. In fact, there's research that says like 3 to 5 minutes tops. Because there's also research that says the average adult only stays on one screen for 47 seconds. So if you're designing training that isn't changing, then we're going to lose them. Yeah, Elizabeth, absolutely. Start black and white with your text and then move forward. Yep, Courtney, you're going to see it from now on. You're going to see it from now on. It is always my example when we talk about accessibility. So when it comes to what the learner is doing, there's one sentence you can keep in your head. This is my mantra, other than no random flamingos. Never do for the learner something they can do for themselves. So my challenge is to always think about, well, how do I push this to them? How do I avoid telling and get them doing? Because doing's where we learn, right? We don't listen, or we don't learn very well by just listening. We got to do it. We would never expect somebody to learn how to drive a car by listening to how to do it and then letting them go. They would need to do it, right? So, some ways that we can make it interactive. We can provide scenarios. We can do case studies. We can create puzzles, games, have a group discussion. We can do role plays, quizzes, instructional origami. It's one of my favorite tools. And this list is not exhaustive, right? So in the comments, I would love to hear. Oh, did you see the typo? I just saw it. Were you distracted by it? Yeah, it's just me proving that I'm human. I think it's an important thing to do, right? From time to time. So in the comments, share with me, what else can you do to make learning interactive? What else can you do to make learning interactive? Ignoring that horrible typo. Oh, I love it, Monica. Interactus. Yes. Add reflection questions from Andrew. Absolutely. Hands-on demo from Haley. Find the mistake can make it interactive too. Yes, Nicholas. Make them intentional. Simulations. Yes. Drag and drop or matching. Teachbacks from the participants. I love teachbacks, Rhonda. Alexandra, reflections and feedback and journals and something very distracting to change the pace and focus. Excellent. We can use distractions to keep attention. If you didn't know that, here you're going to learn something in just a moment. Polls, test in and out and real life situations and report backs, aha slides, word clouds, walk and talk, branching scenarios. Yes, excellent. And when you choose those, put them up against that first question, what's the purpose? And when you can answer both what's the purpose and what's the learner doing with really positive answers, now you're going to get great design. We've got Padlet, scenarios, peer review. Jose, I'm a huge fan of peer review. Encouraging each other, people to help each other. You got it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Peer group discussions. Now, several of you have mentioned a few of the things that I'm going to share with you that we can do to manage distractions as well. So, there are a few other things that aren't as obvious, but some of you have said them. We can find the desirable difficulty. So do the analysis, find that place that is hard enough without being too hard. It's a difficult thing to do, but when we find that spot, that desirable difficulty spot, our learners will be benefited because they'll be engaged. They'll be in it without feeling frustration. The moment we get people to frustration, next step is distraction. Then include movement as much as possible. In fact, you could just go ahead and do that now. Just stretch. It'll feel good. And take breaks. And now, if you really want to minimize distractions and increase attention, take those walks in nature. It's one of the most impactful ways to minimize distraction. Retrieval practice. So ask people what they can recall. Quiz people. That's that retrieval practice. So they're actively having to do something. Challenges to solve together from Asa. I love that. And then finally, reflect. And I think Nicholas said this earlier, that we just pause, give time to reflect, get time to think back on what you've covered. That's actually where the learning often happens when we reflect or we retrieve. We have to get the idea out of our head in order to keep it in our head. So, what about those distractions to create attention? We mentioned it. Let's go there. So, mindless activities can help us replenish our overspent mental resources and enable fresh ideas to surface. So Gloria Mark is the one who also shared the data on 25 minutes to regain our attention after a distraction and has spent much of her career researching attention. She has a fabulous book, Attention Span, that it talks about the myths around attention. It's really, really worth a read. But when we think about mindless activities, we often chastise people for them. We don't let people know that you're playing on your phone that game again, that you've reached level 4,000. That would just be my personal experience. Um, so some mindless activity, something that just takes us away from what we're doing, is really important in order to maintain attention. So attention goes in and out. We can expect that. So we can work with that by creating some mindless activities, not overwhelming amount of them, but from time to time, we may put the cat meme in. You knew it was coming. The cat meme had to show up. So we can add in some mindless activities to help us get back to what it is we're doing. Just small snippets, small things that can help the learner to regain their focus. Sometimes, if you want to use a term better than mindless, you can call them brain breaks. And we take those brain breaks to step away from the intensity of content, more information, increasing that cognitive load. So let's go ahead and pause for a moment. And I'd like you to put your 2 feet again flat on the ground and sit up straight and take a deep breath. Just pause for a moment. And as you pause, I'd like you to think about what 3 things have been most valuable for you in our time together. Just take a moment. What 3 things have been most valuable for you? And when you're ready, we're gonna do a little something with those. I love your comment, Nicholas. So let's get your instructional origami out again. And the question that should show up there on the bottom is, how can we minimize, manage, or eliminate learners' distractions? And at the bottom of your page, I'd like you to write down how you can minimize, manage, or eliminate some of the distractions that we've mentioned. Anything that might come to mind. I'll give you 1 minute to do that. Go ahead and wrap up the thought you are on. And if you would like in the comments to share one thing that you can do to minimize, manage, or eliminate, I would love to see it. One thing that you can do to minimize, manage, or eliminate. Jacqueline says it's important not only the design of the resources, but also to include activities to make students participate in the process, always with a clear purpose and aligned to learning objectives. Absolutely. Absolutely. Humor and interactivity from Margaret. Create more interest for the user at the start to increase engagement. Absolutely. You got to have connection before content, always. Get the learner involved in their learning. Yeah, and Monica, look at that sentence too. Get the learner involved in their learning. It's theirs. It's theirs. And if we design with that perspective, we're going to engage them more. Plan well, apply research-based and time-tested theory to our design and content. Elizabeth, list the possible distractions before designing the course and always keep them in mind. Absolutely. I will often start courses if I'm in person or virtually in person by asking people to tell me what's distracting them. Get them out. Add breaks, definitely. Constant feedback. Exactly. Let people know how they're doing. Well, so many good things. Connect everything to the objectives, eliminate things that do not have a connection or purpose. So, this is the point I have to ask you. How many pink flamingos did you notice today? How many pink flamingos did you see? Or flamingos, I should say. They weren't all pink. Did you notice any flamingos? We actually planted 8 flamingos throughout the deck. And if you saw all 8, then I wasn't doing a very good job of managing distractions. If you only saw 1, Haley saw 4. Excellent. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. What? 4. Okay. Excellent. So no random flamingos because they distract. Those of you who saw 1, fewer distractions in your world. You're my goal, but it's easier to have no pink flamingos to draw people's attention away. Excellent. All right. So with that, thank you so much for joining me. Oh, there's another random pink flamingo, right? You can grab the distraction handout and PowerPoint on my website, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn if you would like. I would love to hear your successes after this. Elle only saw 1. I love it. I love it. Thanks, Jose. Thank you. Awesome.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for that session. That was brilliant. I think there's a lot that we can all take away there. As you say, we'll when the recording goes up, we'll make sure there's a link to the website as well for anyone that wants to grab the handout and PowerPoint. So coming up next, then we have in 15 minutes we have education data mining, the next big thing in corporate learning. And then during that, at 3:15, we have storytelling and the art of engagement over on the Zoho stage. Once again, notifications will come out. Links are all there for where you want to go next. But until then, Katrina, thank you so much. And we shall see you all later.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.